he was always like in the tabloids. He was always on Sports Center doing something, good, bad, or ugly, right? Doing something interesting, with the hair and, always a different, shade of whatever, pink or blonde or whatever. Always getting into like, fights on the court, very scrappy, tremendous rebounder, like one of the greatest rebounders of all time, and just the guy that you kind of wanted on your team, but also like wears a wedding dress out in public for no reason. And he dated like Madonna and Carmen Electra, and he would frequent gay bars. And again, in 96, Dennis Rodman is one of the biggest stars in the NBA, and he's like going to gay bars. It's like, he was just so different. And I think that he was subversive as far as that time period, which I think made him a perfect fit for the NWO, because they were the bad boys of wrestling, and he was just like, it was simpatico. It just fit so freaking well. And it really was an incredible marriage. Talking about wedding dresses, it was a great marriage, and it as far as helping WCW tremendously, because he would come in right after the NBA season, being with the Bulls and Michael Jordan. The 90s Bulls were iconic, right? And the season's over. Oh, here's Dennis Rodman back with the NWO. And in 98, he skipped practice during the NBA finals because he was at Nitro with Hollywood Hogan the night before. And then they had a match, Dennis Rodman and Hollywood Hogan versus Karl Malone from the Utah Jazz.
Oh.
The Bulls just played the Jazz in the 98 finals and beat them, and Diamond Dallas Page. And I wrote this in the book. In Game 6 of the finals, Rodman and Malone went at it, and it was wrestling. They were like rolling around on the floor, and they were doing like pro wrestling in the middle of an NBA Finals game with Michael Jordan on the court. I mean, that's insane. I mean, it's insane to say that in 2025. Like in '98, there was like wrestling in the NBA Finals.
Yep. And to that point, do you think ultimately it was a mistake for the NWO to grow so large? Because you got that Dennis Rodman makes sense because all everything we're talking about, but then there are just random kind of people that just start joining each. And do you think that watered down the brand, and that's kind of some of the fracturing of it?
Definitely, definitely. And it's very easy to look back in hindsight, and say that's what hurt them. But they were kind of coming at the NWO as a storyline in a totally different way than it has kind of become the lore, because the NWO was so successful that they were ready to make it like give it them their own show. So there was going to be like a whole NWO show. In order to have a whole show, you needed more wrestlers. You couldn't just have all main event level wrestlers. So you needed some guys like in the mid card and lower card. So they started filling with the idea that there was going to be its own show. It's going to be like its own promotion. It's like they were gonna take over, and they were gonna be like their own thing. So they needed more wrestlers to do that. The problem was is that just was. I mean, they thought that was the future of it, and they thought that was how it was gonna shake out. In reality, is they just didn't realize that it was a much better, more effective storyline with just kind of like the elite core guys trying to take over. So then they kind of got caught in between, and they added too many members, and then there's also the fact, Kyle, that like everyone that was going up against the NWO, like the good guys in WCW, they all looked like crap. They were all treated like geeks. So it's like all the guys in the locker room wanted to be in the NWO because it helped their characters, and then if it helps their characters, it's probably going to help them make more money. The NWO was hot, and the NWO guys were the most popular guys in WCW. So it was very difficult, for them to kind of like manage stuff back then, and it got bloated. It got bloated, and they never really had like an end to the story. There was never like a definitive like this is how we're gonna end the NWO. It just never worked out.
Yeah, and speaking of that, kind of on the continuing the impact of how big this got, because it's important to at least people that are listening to understand how big and impactful the NWO and this Monday Night Wars ended up being. That you cover football, so literally 10% of I mean there was a 10% drop in Monday Night
Hmm.
Football ratings
Yeah,
during this time.
yeah,
So and then you realize how big Monday Night Football is, and I mean how big it was then, and how it
yeah.
continues to be big. It's the biggest thing on like biggest show on TV every Monday night.
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.